Giglio is our next speaker. He's one of the staff here at DEF CON Groups VR. Um, and he's a ham radio enthusiast and a hacker from San Diego. He's part of DEF CON 858. Giglio is presenting something Meshtastic Pip-Boy personal mesh with 150 kilometer reach. Now, I know that sounds a little abstract, and it kind of is, because Meshtastic, if anybody's noticed, has exploded in popularity. And there's quite a bit of controversy now, given that there's a new FCC ruling. I hope or they're talking about a new FCC ruling. I hope you talk about that. Meshtastic, a wireless-based mesh network for off-grid communications. Think party in the woods with no cellular, but can still text and make fun of your friend's outfit. And that's one of the cool things, is this gives you essentially a personal, like cell phone text SMS capability, completely offline without need for massive infrastructure at very low cost. And for his bio, Giglio has given us an LLM generated limerick. There once was a lad, brave and free, whose words I shall craft in glee. Meshtastic, he said, with his Pip-Boy each day, he traveled so far with amazing spree. So with that, Giglio, take it away.
Hey, everybody. Like X-Ray said, I'm Giglio, part of the DEF CON Groups VR team. And it's a really good team, so I'm glad to be part of it. My talk title is a little odd. I was trying to come up with something. I mean, Meshtastic is a thing that's got a lot of knobs and things to twiddle and can be a little technically boring, I guess. So the something, I've got a couple other things to talk about. And at a high level, kind of where I want to come at this from, the theme of DEF CON 32 itself is We Engage. And that is an outgrowth of a talk, and some or many of you may have seen it last year. I didn't get to see it, but I have read the notes from the blog. Cory Doctorow did a talk on the enshittification of the internet and how the internet used to be a thing where people shared ideas and things, and it turns into this place where it is being mined for various things, and then at some point, whatever benefit there was is gone, and it goes the other way, and it becomes a bad thing. And so Cory has a plan to roll that back and try to fix it. So that's kind of the high level of where DEF CON, Dark Tangent, and those folks came up with the We Engage. And so I'm going to kind of come at Meshtastic from a couple different angles, but ultimately it's going to be in the anti-enshittification angle, and also the what happens if bad things happen, like say all of a sudden we have some sort of issue, your cell phones don't work anymore, that kind of stuff. So you can use Meshtastic a lot of different ways. So I've been thinking about different things related to the internet, and it wasn't so much, I guess it would be in parallel with Cory's talk, but I've been starting to accumulate my own locally stored content because it's becoming more and more obvious that Google as a search engine is not a search engine. It's a way to push stuff in your face to try to get you to look at it. And every website that you go to, if you're not running a pie hole or some kind of content filtering or something that scrubs all the junk off the page, it's almost like if you went back to the old, I can't think of what the era was on the internet, but where everybody designed their own web pages, but they were all on acid, and and they were trying to sell you skunks that could breathe fire or something. So you see all these kinds of ads all day. On the Meshtastic topic, I've got my notes I'm referring to, and I realize that my notes are now out of alignment with my slide deck I've been poking at all day. So I'm going to come back to some of this. So for now I have to turn myself around again so I can see my slide deck. Okay, so we are going to scroll this guy up a click. Okay, so the something for my first something, this is going to be how you can do things that are either free or you can access free content and so on. So I know we have a worldwide audience. In the United States, it's still the case that you can go get a library card for the local library, which I recommend everybody do, because it supports the library system and it lets them know that we still care about what's going on in the world. As soon as you do that, go get on either the iOS store or the Android store, and there's an app called Libby. And what it is an electronic version, if you will, of your local library. And you can sign up for magazine subscriptions, look at, current magazines, books. They have all kinds of content out there. It's free. It's part of the library system. They just have you link up underneath a whatever your current library network is. Like X-Ray said, I'm in San Diego, so mine's part of the San Diego library system. And then once you do that, so also go look for Kanopy, starts with a K. That is an online streaming service that has all kinds of different movies, and it basically runs on a kind of a credit system. They give you, I forget how many credits per month, and then you go rent a movie and you get, I think, a couple days to watch it. It uses a credit or two, and then so it's basically free to you. So that's another benefit. The other thing, I did a talk last year on why hackers should get a ham radio license, and it was called, Ham Radio Isn't Just for Dinosaurs. And so I'm going to jump to my next slide, assuming I have not messed up my order here. If we can get it to stay put, that'd be awesome. We'll just stay there, I guess. So what getting a ham radio license does for a hacker, which I know a lot of people think of ham radio guys as, old farts sit and talk about what kind of shoes did we get today and into the wee hours of the night. Well, technology being a thing, and we're all hackers. So what that actually does is that gives you the unlocks the achievement to where you can do pretty much anything that's RF and frequency based, as long as you stay in the bands that your license lets you use. You start out with a technician license. That lets you get all the bands you see on the screen here. So that satellite communication, 2 meter, 70 centimeter on up, ham radio, and a little interjection there from somebody. Then if you do general class, you can also do HF. Anyway, this lets you now experiment and do things with RF frequencies, and you're licensed. So that is actually a big deal, because when we talk about Meshtastic, that's low power, but there is the 915 megahertz range, which is where Meshtastic lives. That's also the 33 centimeter ham radio band. So there's overlap there, and you can do things having that ability. So that's so as far as my title, something Meshtastic, this is our first something. The second something is going to be, so back to Corey's enshittification of the internet and my comments about, maintaining local cached things. There are the things that you can do with that. And for me, I did it with a Humble Bundle book bundle. And I've been buying those and collecting them over the years. And I realized, I could put all this stuff in a bucket, and I could index the bucket and then add other stuff to it. Like if you go out and look on Google, you can find free, it's the Oxford English Dictionary. Now it's spread over various years of things because Google scanned things that were available. You can download that stuff, stick it in your bucket, index it. I found an indexing tool called Syst2, which is pretty slick. So this lets you then put every thing that you care about in your own bucket. You can index it, and now that's your internet. The other thing you can do is, and X-Ray turned me onto this real recently. I wasn't aware of it. Internet in a box. And what it is, it can run on a Raspberry Pi. You can run it on different things. I'm running it on one of those little old, it's a Lenovo M93P. It's the one that's like a double-decker peanut butter and jelly sandwich. It's like a probably Mac Mini size. And let me see if I can do this right. If we go back over here, and then I go over here. Now, let me get back here and make sure we're seeing that. Yeah. So this is my local copy of the Internet in a Box. So I installed it. I'm running it on Ubuntu, and it downloaded. I went for the pre-built 256 gig bundle, if you will. So I've got Wikipedia, 102 gigs of Wikipedia, and let's see how fast it's going to behave, or is it going to blow up while I'm doing a demo. Yeah, there we go. See if we have anything with DEF CON. DEF CON robot context. Anyway, those are defense contracts. Let's see. The security conference. What do we got? Okay, so here's the DEF CON security conference. Now, this is all locally cached content that's living under my feet in my little computer table. So you could basically make your own internet here. Project Gutenberg library in English. It has all kinds of awesome stuff. Pick whatever things aren't under license anymore, and they're probably in here, to the tune of 71 gig. It also has training. Ostensibly what the Internet in a Box is for places that might not have access to technology, or they're so far out there that, pre somebody being able to have a satellite link up to the internet, that you can build this Internet in a Box, and it's real straightforward. And then you can also duplicate it. It's got a thing down here for insert a USB stick drive to publish files. And you can also share things, because the whole concept is this should be free content, right? So you're not stealing somebody's licensed content. You're using what's out there that's already free before it disappears, because, I forget who it was. A lot of those link shortener sites on the web, well, I forget who it was. Might have been Google. They just turned it off. Ooh, yeah, you know what? These are going to expire in a couple of days. Have a nice life. So, we kind of have to engage to follow the theme and follow what we think we're going to need going forward. So now we're going to jump back to my talk, which is over there. Okay. So that's the second something. So now what we can do, local LLM. So the Limerick, and if you, let's see, can I turn around here so I can see everybody? If you know me or hang out with me, you'll realize I'm rarely serious, or if I am serious, I'm serious, and then I go back to being silly. But so what I did was I asked this, I have an app that runs on the iPhone. It needs to be an iPhone that's got the latest processors. Also works on the Mac with the Apple Silicon, and the iPad. The one to get would be the latest iPad with the M4. But anyway, it's all local. And so there's a thing called Local LLM, make sure I use the names right, and another one called Offline Chat. And what you do is, I think each one of them is maybe $10. The cool thing is Local LLM is very well supported. And so there's a bunch of different models that they pick models, and there's a term for what they do. And of course, it's escaping me now that I'm in the middle of a presentation. But they basically grind them to where they can fit on a device. And as long as the device has a high enough neural processor ability, you can talk to the thing. But the nice thing is, like the Internet in a Box, it's totally local to you. Nobody is looking at what you're asking. Nobody is, trying to drive an ad to you. Hey, you looked up some I've got this ugly thing on my foot, and all of a sudden something's trying to sell you Band-Aids or something. None of that. You can, basically you have some privacy when you want to go look up something. So I've been playing with those. So I asked the thing to make a limerick, and I told it you need to use Meshtastic, distance, and I forget some other word. So that's what it came up with. DEF CON specific. So the DEF CON data duplication village, that's been in existence, I think, for a decade at least. And what they do is they have put together, I think they're at 6 terabytes now of content of things that, basically the diet every hacker could use. And then what people do is you have to check ahead of time and set up a schedule because, as everyone knows, it takes a little while to duplicate 6 terabytes. But you buy the drive and, whatever they recommend in terms of the technology. This has been around pre-SSD. So it used to be they'd tell you get this particular drive because it'll spin this fast, the frame sizes are just right and all that. But anyway, they'll duplicate it for free and you take it home. And now you've got 6 terabytes of, cool, awesome DEF CON data, hacker type data. Okay, so that's our second something. Yes. Okay, now I forget. I've been playing with these slides all day as the event was going on. So I have myself forgotten what comes next. Let's see. We did Internet in a Box. We did SYS2. So this is SYS2, the indexer. So you can see this one here has, I put the word hacker in, and I've indexed data that apparently has date stamps going back to 79 all the way up to, you can see what last time I did it was the latter part of June. It'll index applications, audio, images, text, video. So I put the word hacker in and it spit out some stuff. So I screen snipped that. So this is pretty useful. And again, it's all local to you. Nobody's watching what you're doing. So yeah, so here we go. So now we're going to head into Meshtastic. So, and if anybody's a Monty Python fan, and now for something completely Meshtastic. So we're going to talk about the components that make up Meshtastic, and I'm going to take a sip of tea. Hang on. When I was thinking about doing this talk, Meshtastic has a lot of components. Let's say there's like a dozen different things that you would want to understand if you're going to get into Meshtastic, like a person would if they wanted to race cars and build their own engines and do that kind of stuff. You don't have to do that. You can just drive the car. But I found, and this is a different DEF CON village, it's called the Lonely Hackers Club. And they have a Meshtastic website with directions for how to do Meshtastic, get set up, and they're specific to DEF CON as well. And I thought it was so awesome. I'm like, why would I build my own thing? So I reached out to them and I said, hey, can I use your thing in my presentation? They're like, heck yeah, go for it. So we're going to use their web page, and we're going to go through it as a way to kind of hit the concepts with Meshtastic, and then we're going to loop back, and I've got some slides. We'll do a little deeper dive. And my hope is, if I put everybody to sleep, once we get through this section, if you're like, that's it, I can't take any more Meshtastic, you've at least got enough that you can run off and go get your own device and be useful with it. So now what we're going to do is we're going to go to the Lonely Hackers Club. Okay, so here's updates. So now let me turn back around so we can see everybody. So Meshtastic is a radio frequency based communications device. It doesn't transport voice, it does text. So, if you think of texting your friends, whatever you're up to, that's how this works. You pick somebody and you text them. Now, the differentiator here is instead of texting a person per se, your node, that's what they call the little device that you carry, your node talks to their node, and you can send texts, you can, basically whatever you want. Most people are going to use the device hooked up to a cell phone via Bluetooth, but you don't have to. There are portable versions of the devices that come with keyboards. One of them is kind of styled after the old style BlackBerry with the integrated keyboard. There are, don't you hate when things pop up on your screen and distract you? So for DEF CON, there's a lot of people that want to bring their devices. One of the other members of DC 858 took their device with them and said they hit me in Slack, and they said they left their device in their room for a day, turned on. When they came back, it had already detected like 115 nodes. So, and that was just sitting still in the room. So it sounds like DEF CON is going to be pretty busy when it comes to Meshtastic, which is cool. Now, the thing you see here is a QR code. So what you can do is you can scan a QR code and it will preload settings into your device. So this is the way you don't have to know how to build an engine. You can purchase a Meshtastic device. And then if you have your friend who's the mesh boy, I'm going to get tired of saying Meshtastic, it is the wizard. They can put together the configuration that would be the right thing. And then you scan the code and you're both on the same page. So this is, like they say here, this is what you used before DEF CON. You'll hear words like channel, and then there's this thing over here, long fast. These are different encoding schemes that are made for different things. Long fast is meant to be used for longer distances, which is where the long comes from, but still be the fast version. I think there's like a long slow, but it's, you know, it's like backing down to 300 baud if you're super far apart. And then so you want to make sure that every last bit of information is squeezed out of the signal. So, but when you get to DEF CON, oops, I'm trying to scroll the screen there. Let's scroll this one. So when you get to DEF CON, they say use this one. So this one's using short fast, and then it has other optimizations so that your device will do better when it's surrounded by a sea of other devices. And then the Lonely Hackers Club also have their own channel, the LHC channel. So that's the other cool thing with Meshtastic. There are, it comes with a default configuration, which, you know, you can change it however you want. But the default, then, if you, like, say you buy one of these devices, and there's some other caveats, so we'll get there. But you buy one of these devices from Amazon, it lands, you pick it up, and then you turn it on. Everybody, for the most part that I've seen, and I'm in Southern California, and last count, I think the max we got to was like 350 nodes, but that spans from the border all the way up to like Simi Valley. And because of the lot of work of a lot of people, you can actually send a message from one end and it will make it up to the other end. And that's, you know, that's probably 150, 200 miles. So, but that's the default channel. If you want your own private channel for you to talk to your friends with, you can make that. So you give it a channel name, then it will generate a pre-shared key. You can use your own. And then like this shows secondary, because for the most part, you want to leave the primary channel alone unless you understand what you're up to. And then basically you can do whatever you want. Now I'm trying to scroll the screen again. So what is Meshtastic? It's a project lets use inexpensive battery-powered long-range radios to send messages in GPS locations. So, and it's open source, and it started out on the ESP32 hardware platform. It uses LoRa as a radio standard, which is also used by Helium and some other things. So you may have familiarity with that kind of stuff already. So, okay, cool. So now that sounds cool. What do I need to get started? Well, you need a device, and they have some good guidance here. They have different chipsets in them. If you go with the ESP32, and they're recommending the S3 version nowadays, that lets you do Bluetooth or Wi-Fi, which is handy if you want to put a fixed node at home and talk to it over your network. There's NRF52, which are much more power efficient. So those tend to show up in portable devices. And so then you need a battery, you need a USB cable, you need a computer, because these have firmware. And because this is open source, there's a lot of motivated folks that are working on the firmware. And so the firmware gets updated, I won't say every few days, but, you know, let's say weekly, roughly. And it doesn't sit static. I mean, there's a lot of active development going on. because the more people use things, the more they want to fix stuff or whatever. They're talking about using a phone to connect to your device, which you can do. And a little later, I'll show different clients. They're talking about Android and iOS clients. There's also a web-enabled client if you're have it hooked to an internet antenna. Um, if anybody is already in RF net, you realize you can go down a rabbit hole on antennas. And I'm trying to think if I don't have a picture. I'll just have to describe it. Okay, I got a node. Now what? Well, you put it all together. Now we're going to head it over to the Meshtastic Flasher, and we can actually do that right here. So this is the website if you're running Chrome or Edge. If you want to flash your device, meaning update its firmware, then you could come here, select target device, and this is also a way to tell what is out there for hardware. So you can see there's a lot of different things. There's a company called Heltec that has a bunch of different things. They're nice and portable. Some of them have e-ink screens and are pretty cute. LilyGo makes a bunch of stuff. The T-beams are nice. They're unitized packages, e-ink screen, built-in batteries. The other thing some of these can do or come equipped with, you can have sensors for various things. You can have a sensor for temperature, pressure, humidity, and there's also one that's I forget is it Bosch? I think it's a Bosch air quality sensor, and then so it'll tell you air quality, and instead of telling you it's 500 megohms resistance, they've actually put the curves in there, so it'll give you the number that you might see on an actual device made for air quality. And with any luck, I got some screen snips so I can show that. So LilyGo makes good stuff. I've got Nano G1. I've got a Station G1 and G2. Actually, I got to work with our local ham radio club, Palomar Amateur Radio Club, and they put the Station G1 up on the repeater site that's up on top of Mount Palomar, which is right around 5,500 feet. And so that gives some pretty good coverage. Now, the thing with San Diego, it's hilly, so it's got lots of canyons, so you could still be in a dead zone. So anyway, though, you can see there's a lot of different hardware here. So before I get off topic there. So basically, you flash it by going to that website. Then you put it together. And one thing to be aware of, always hook the antenna up first. Don't power it on without the antenna. Depending on how much power it puts out, it could actually burn itself up. So you hook up the antenna and then you're on the mesh. And then, yeah, they talk about the client role. We'll get into these details shortly. So now we'll go back to the slide deck. So what else do we have here? Okay, so that's concepts. Perfect. Now let's see. What do I have? Yeah, okay. So talk title I had was something Meshtastic Pip-Boy, and back into me being silly. I've never played the Fallout game, which is, I believe, where Pip-Boy comes from. But I started playing with this and showing everybody in DEF CON Groups Discord, hey, check it out. I can make a wearable device. And somebody was like, that looks like a Pip-Boy. So that's where the Pip-Boy part came from. But in this case, this is the B&Q company. They make the Nano G2 Ultra. There's actually a built-in antenna in here that's good for quite a few different bands. So if you wanted to buy a straightforward device, you don't have to play with hooking antennas to it and doing all that kind of stuff. This is one way you could do it. Now, you wouldn't necessarily wear it. That's just me being silly. But it's made to be put in a pocket, and it's actually built to account for the physical properties of the human body when you have a transmitting device next to it. And it accounts for that so that your antenna doesn't just spend all its time trying to heat your whatever is under the pocket, where you put the thing. So that's kind of fun. So that's our Pip-Boy. So distance. Meshtastic is very line of sight dependent. And so as long as you have that in mind, you can get some pretty good distances. Now, this device you see right here, I used that at work last week. And what I did, I put it in a paper cup. I put it on top of my car. Now I figured out there's a sweet spot in the parking structure, which is a 4-story parking structure. And it happens to be a great place to pick up stuff being sent from Long Beach, which is up the coast from us, because I'm in San Diego. So Long Beach is up the coast. And so what I did was, now what we see here is, so you see the battleship USS Iowa, that's up in Long Beach, and it's right on the edge of the water. So now I'm inland where I work, but it turns out it's a straight shot up from where I am to this. And so here's my DCG VR Pip-Boy. So I'm sitting at my desk with Wasp, a little nod to the girl with the dragon tattoo. You'll see a different slide in a little bit. We have Plague and Wasp talking to each other. DCG VR Pip-Boy reached out and directly hit the battleship Iowa, which has a node on the battleship. So now, based on my Google map clicking, that's 88 miles. So one device talking to another device. This particular device has 100 milliwatts, and that may not mean anything, but figure that's like, your little, if you've got any of those family radio things where your kids talk to each other on the walkie-talkie, it's that kind of power level. It's really low, but this goes 88 miles if you put it in the right spot. So there's definite usefulness here. And so what you can do, we have some use cases coming up, but you can, think of it, say regular communication lines were down, not that you're going to base your sole way to save yourself on a Meshtastic device, but you can get 88 miles if you got stuff set up in the right spot. What else have we got here? Okay, so hardware. We covered a lot of this already. One thing to be aware of, make sure you purchase the correct frequency for the region you're in. The United States uses 915 megahertz. I think the UK is 866 megahertz. I forget, he uses 433 megahertz, but there are different frequency ranges you can purchase. So if you got all excited and got on Amazon and went and bought one, the first one you saw, and you get it home and you can't talk to anybody, you might find out you got a 433 megahertz device or something like that. So we talked about this. Another thing to be mindful of, I'm not sure how many folks have played with the RTL SDR devices that basically they are kind of upgraded, souped up digital TV devices from, I think it was Europe, where they were mostly started out. And then folks realized, hey, you know what, we could program these and you can pick up all kinds of stuff. So they use the same kind of connector mostly. It's the SMA connector. The thing to keep in mind, some SMA connectors have a receptacle and some have a pin. And so you don't want two SMA devices with receptacles because there's nothing to carry the conductor that's current between the two devices. Nor do you want to try to get two devices that both have pins because they won't be able to connect together. We talked about line of sight already. Let's see what else we got. Clients. Okay, so now we get to do some more show and tell. So Android client, and you know what? I'm staring at my own slide deck. Has anybody got any questions or wants me to speak up, slow down, go home? Okay, guess not. Okay, we press on. Okay, so Android client, iOS client, there's a web client, and there's a programmatic client. So if you buy a device that is the ESP guts, it has Wi-Fi, so you can hook it up to your Wi-Fi. And so I've done that with a machine on the floor over here. So let's see if this is, yeah. So, okay, so you still talking to me here? Let's try this guy. And I'm jumping a little forward here, so we'll do a little demo. But so you can see a lot of the devices that are around where I'm at. And there's, okay, Giggly Remote. Hi, Giggly Remote. this one's actually one that's configured for DEF CON and using a different technology, MQTT, to be able to be picked up by this guy. And then, so yeah, we got a few devices going on. What I've got it configured for here is somebody has written a BBS for these devices. Now I'm going to start jumping around in my slides here. So I'm going to get down here a little bit. Where'd it go? I overshot. Oh yeah, we're doing live demo. Okay, I thought I had a screenshot. And so what we can do. So if I send something now, don't fail me. Wakey, wakey, please. There we go. Okay, so now the BBS is talking to us. So it says use the first letter for the command. So what I just did was I sent a direct message from Giglio to Zardoz. And I know X-Ray said Zardoz once today. So funny how that works. So what we're going to do is we're going to do B for BBS. So here we go. Please lengthen this text to 2 characters. What? Well, it looks like they got some work to do on the web client. Let's see if it'll even work. Of course not. Haha. Oh, there it goes. Good. So we're doing the BBS, except it didn't recognize it as a command. That's awesome. Okay, so demo failed due to lack of testing. Anyway, what it does is it gets us to, do I have that in mind? I might have that farther down. Let's go see. Let's see if I did that. That's, nope. There we are. So here's the BBS. Here's what the server side looks like. It gets something in. So over here is what we were just trying to do, which turns out the web client failed. So you send a B. Okay, you get the menu. Send another B. It says, what would you like? Which bulletin board? Okay, we have 4. So, okay, I'd like the general one, please. What would you like to do to the general board? Read. Cool. Which number would you like? 1. Okay. All right, test post in the general board. Cool. So you could conceivably build this out and use it to store and forward messages or whatever kind of stuff you want to do for extra functionality that wouldn't be real-time based. So you could just bake this into whatever your use cases you're playing with or trying to support. So now we're going to go back up to talk about the rest of the clients. Okay, so there's an Android client, an iOS client. We already played with the web client, and we're doing okay in time. So here's the iOS client. The iOS client is very pretty. It's very colorful. You got all kinds of cool stuff. Now, just so it turns out that the top device is the one that had the picture sitting on my wrist. So that's the DCG VR Pip-Boy. And this is the list of devices that's around me. And you could tell this was last night. I was snipping these screenshots. So then we got Plague. Now, we don't have Wasp handy because I think I turned Wasp into Giglio. So, but we got, that's my ham radio call sign. And this device itself is actually outside my house with a 4-foot LoRa antenna so that it can help fill in the mesh up where I'm at. But say we pick Plague and we go into Plague. So Plague is a B&O station or B&Q station G2, and it, here's how long it's been up, all its stats. I've actually got one of those modules plugged into it. So at the time I snipped this 113, and this one happens to be in my garage. It's 89 degrees in the garage, 47% humidity, 105.56 millibars, and up here is our air quality, which is lightly polluted. Now, if we went to the one in the backyard, it's pretty much always green because it's outdoors. But being Southern California, it's possible it could change, if we start having fires or something. Some more menu configuration stuff over here. Then it also has environmental metrics. It has device metrics, and it makes pretty charts. So you can kind of track things over time, which is pretty slick. So this is the iOS client, and I'd say it's really great for folks that don't want to tinker as much, and because there are some things you can't do from here. So now we're going to move and look at the Android client. So here's the Android client, seeing much the same stuff, and you can see it's got DCG VR Pip-Boy, It's got what the device is, battery status and voltage, and then what kind of channel utilization. Here's our buddy Plague again. Now it's got the same stuff here, but it doesn't take you a nice, pretty screen. My assumption is there are different dev teams for this. I know the one that works on the iOS client, his name's Garth, and there's other folks. We mentioned channels earlier. So you can see that for DCG VR Pip-Boy, long fast, this is the default channel that ships with every device. Admin, you can actually do remote admin of devices. So say you had a device that's up on the top of a mountain and it takes you an hour to drive there. But because of its placement, you can hit it directly from your home, say 30 miles away. You can remotely administer it from 30 miles away. So that's what this is. What it does is it puts administration commands and ships it over this channel, which is protected by its own encryption key. And then the device on the other end gets it and says, yeah, okay, it decrypts. I know what to do with it. It's a command. I perform the command. This was somebody fooling around one day, made a second channel called Secret Cabal. Okay, cool. Park is the ham radio amateur radio club I mentioned earlier. So we built a channel for them. We haven't got to where we're sharing it with people yet. So me and the DC858 person, who's also part of the Palomar Amateur Radio Club, can send messages over this. Then I did DCG VR. So that's for our group, but there's also a contingent that's in DEF CON today, right on site. Now, none of them are Meshtastic nerds, but there's other channels like we were looking at with the LHC folks, the Lonely Hackers Club. They have their own channel. So now I can't from here talk over RF to Las Vegas. It might be possible, but it's unlikely because I live near an airport. I'm not going to put a 3,000-foot tower up to try to overcome whatever's going on. And to that point, I'm jumping around on you, and forgive me. Let's see. This thing here. So say you have 2 points and you want to know if you can get to them. There are SCADA, somebody with OT experience. They'll have to tell me how to say it right. But basically, you could put in the GPS coordinates of the locations, and this thing has the terrain mapping and can basically tell you if what you're trying to do is possible. So what you can see is my thing from work, which is going to be the green guy, going to the USS Iowa, which is sea level. Yep, look at that. We're up high, they're down low, and because there's nothing in the way, and it's out over water, so there's probably not a lot of electrical noise. It should be doable. Turns out it is. That's 141 kilometers. So that's not bad for something you can put in your pocket. So back over here. Okay, so we're looking at clients. So here's some more config detail stuff, which I don't think is really worth digging into because then we're getting into nuts and bolts, and you're at the level where you're basically, if you're a car person, you're trying to like update the firmware on the computer in your car type of thing. We did a web client demo. So what else have we got going here? Yeah, okay, so MQTT. So what MQTT does, and I'm sure a bunch of you out there recognize what MQTT means, and let me turn around so I can see everybody again. Basically, it's a mechanism for transporting traffic and activity, and then with a backend database that is able to take that and act upon it, and people hook up to it, and then you can basically direct things to happen or collect data, whatever you're happening to be onto. In this case, I'm using it as a transport to be able to, so the device Giglo Remote is here at home, but it's configured like if I was at DEF CON. Now, like I was saying, it's not possible for me to talk to Las Vegas directly. So I got the bright idea, hey, why don't I stand up an MQTT server, and then I can set my traffic to go out over to the MQTT server, which I signed up with Hive MQ, and they have a free service. And I think they'll let you do like 10 gig a month on 100 clients. So for this kind of stuff, that's pretty cool because there's no way that me sending text it's not like I have a factory of IoT devices or a farm of sensors collecting information. Um, so the what you're seeing here is a list of nodes. We're on the Giglio remote device, but Plague, Wasp, and DCGVR Pip-Boy are not on the same RF parameters as this guy, but they share a common channel that we created. And you can see that on the right side of the screen over here, channel 2, channel 2, channel 2. So this device, whatever channel 2 is, and I think it's the DCGVR channel, is the channel that all these devices traversing through the MQTT server, which, if I remember, I'm in some cluster that's in Europe, which is interesting. One of the folks on the team is in Australia. And so we were playing with if we could get it to work. And we didn't the time we tried it. But now that it's working, I don't know, it might be possible. So we may have to revisit that. But anyway, there are ways, if you have a geographical area that's using RF to talk to itself, but you want to get that and ship it to someplace else, you can do it using MQTT if you configure things appropriately, which I appeared to have stumbled on the proper settings and was able to do so. So now let's go back to what else we got in the slide deck here. Anything interesting? And scenarios. Okay, so you have different scenarios. Say you have some friends. The Burning Man Festival, I've never been, but I know there's a contingent of folks that take Meshtastic devices to go there. Or there's a thing called EDC that's in Las Vegas every year that has like 100,000 people. There are folks that take a Meshtastic device there. And so for that, you want to tune it based on the settings that we were talking about over here. And sorry if I'm jumping around from web page to web page, but if we go back over here and we look at those barcodes again, QR codes. So if you're at DEF CON, they say use this with their channel. And then there's also other settings that you would then optimize for, which reduces the load on the mesh to allow things to talk to, like you wouldn't take a device that's measuring temperature and pressure to this kind of event. It would just hog up the mesh without adding much value. So if you have a larger area, like say you're in kind of some kind of regional area, you want to get you can use long fast as the encoding scheme, and then you want to get your units up as high as you can, practically speaking, right? You don't want to go breaking into buildings and trying to scale the outside like Spider-Man and put a node up on the roof. Now, if you work for a place with a tall building and you went and talked to the management people and somehow could Jedi mind them into letting you put the device up on top of the building, that might be a cool thing if you got people around you that are trying to use devices such as yours. And then lastly, so for Southern California, I've been playing with Meshtastic, I don't know, let's say a year, just to come up with a number. There was a point there where I had 2 nodes. And if you're going to play with it yourself as a tinkerer, get 2 nodes. That way you can tell if you're transmitting and you're receiving, and you can talk to yourself. Because if you only have a single node and you think there's going to be people around, then you need to, you want to be able to tell that your stuff's working. But in Southern California, San Diego, there were a bunch of folks, and they were mostly ham radio folks, but some of them actually own companies that are responsible for putting those big towers on the tops of mountains that you see microwave links that go over the mountains and that kind of stuff. There's one guy down here, all of his nodes, and now I'm going to jump around some more. Let's see. Let's go back over here. Do we have any of the all your base showing up here? Yeah. So like all your base belong to Chula Vista. That's down close to the border, but not at the border. What else do we got? All your base belong to Bonita. That's same general direction. All your base belong to Otay. Now we're getting closer to the border. San Miguel Mountain, I think that's on the Mexican side. Tijuana, that's on the Mexican side. So this person, just in this little list we have here, what do we got? 6, 7 base units. And his company, he basically has his guys put these up on the towers. So these became the anchor points for most of San Diego area. And some of these things, the one in Otay actually can hit stuff up into LA. So if you get those kinds of folks, then you can get something pretty interesting going on. Otherwise, if you're, a nerd like me and you live someplace, like say you're in an apartment building, if you're on a balcony and if you're up on a couple of stories, that'd be awesome. You could put one out on your balcony and plug it into the outlet out there or something. Anyway, so there's cool stuff you can do there. What else we got? We already talked about the BBS. Okay, yeah, things to watch out for. We talked about that. Never power up a node without an antenna connected. One thing I learned the hard way. So the node that got put on the top of Mount Palomar, because it's a fixed node, it doesn't have a GPS. So we put the GPS setting into it, and then the team took it up there, put it up on the pole, and configured it up into their UPS room and all that kind of stuff. So, okay, perfect. And then we got looking at where it was on the map, and I believe somebody realized or decided, you know what, we need to make this look like it's farther away because we don't want some dunderhead going up there in the dark and trying to blow up the repeater site. So then we tried to fix it remotely, which it looked like you could, and we tried all manner of fiendish client mute. They can participate on the mesh and send messages, but they don't act like a device that's trying to forward packets to other devices on the mesh, which is why it's a mesh, right? The more people you have, it extends because you have devices that are forwarding those packets. And then, only if you maintain a tower or something that's got some serious reach capability, then there's modes called router or repeater that you would use. But you wouldn't want to do that if you're, like, say you went to one of these events where there's 1 million people. If you make your device the router, every other device around you is going to instinctively say, oh, we got to send our traffic through that device over there. And then nobody's going to have any traffic because your device is going to tip over. So I think that might be kind of where we are. Now, I don't have any wrap up and I need to put the links together. So, and it's 10 till, so I need to shut up. Let me swing back around here. So let's abruptly go to the question and answer phase if anybody has any questions.
I got one.
Go for it.
Did you ever use it to make some kind of robot or something, a remote controlled boat? I'm thinking you can create a swarm of robots, for example, to investigate underwater caves, and maybe even use something in low orbit. I don't know. If they can talk to each other and how fast the communication happens.
Yeah, I think the way that may very well be possible because they have Python libraries, I guess would be the right term. I'm not a Python person, so forgive me. But you basically can write up your own stuff if you want to. So it's conceivable you could do that. Now you would have to, figure out how you control your stuff because remember, this is text-based. So if you're sending a text message to the other device, then something's got to consume it and know what to do with it, and then you'd end up with some kind of navigation and steering and all that kind of stuff. So I don't know that anybody's used Meshtastic for that specifically. The underlying LoRa, though, the radio frequency component of it, if you transport, if you will, and LoRa is spread spectrum frequency hopping. And so that's what is also kind of cool because it's not like somebody can get on one channel and then obliterate everybody around them. Mm-hmm. So I'm not sure who's used what cool use cases for things, but I know there are a bot I won't say a chat bot because that has taken on a way different meaning than it used to mean. But if you send things to it, and I think that was even on the LHC, let's see, the LHC website. Do I have that? Go back over here, LHC, this one. Yeah, they talked about having a bot. Yeah, reach out to our bot by sending a direct message to the main node, and that's the node ID. You can ask about your signal quality and other info. So there are people that are writing stuff that would, use Meshtastic as a transport for some kind of automation or other whatever you got.
Yeah,
going on.
exactly. That's what I was thinking.
Yeah.
Yeah, because
So-
I went on the website, I saw like Raspberry Pi and other things, so I thought maybe
Yeah.
it can be taken further.
Well, yeah, for sure. And here, let me jump back over to where the hell is my thing? If we go back over to the flasher and you have this list of stuff, right down at the bottom is the Raspberry Pi Pico based things.
Mhm.
So the company called Rack, they make things with WizBlocks. So you'll see the Rack WizBlock what that is a modular setup. So think of them as building blocks. And so you look at what you want and you want a GPS. Okay, you buy the GPS module. You want something else, you buy that module. They plug together and then you basically assemble the unit. And then a lot of people, there's folks on Etsy will do 3D printing of cases for these various devices. And then you're good to go. But the Raspberry Pi also has them too. So my guess is that some of these, and I've barely scratched the surface on Raspberry Pi stuff, but there would have to be a LoRa hat of some sort that is.
Oh yeah, they have Shield.
Yeah, exactly. Shield. Okay, use the right term. So yeah, so that's many things are possible. You just have to figure out how you want to do it. I don't know about the underwater part. RF works differently when you get underwater. So
Oh yeah, that I want to know about that because I did see a project like someone made a self-driving boat basically, and it was transmitting its GPS location back to him. It was
That's
like
cool.
following the coastline and something. I don't remember the channel though. If I'll find it, I'll maybe send it to you on Discord.
Yeah, go for it. And be careful when you talk about it, because then the DEA will come after you.
Oh no, I'm not in the area.
I got you.
There is one handy way to talk to underwater vehicles via RF, and that's for the vehicle to trail a floating wire antenna. And basically, it's just a long wire that floats, that it reels out as it dives, and it goes up to the surface, kind of floats on the surface, and can pick up radio waves. The only downside is any passing boats that run into the wire can chop it up and pull it into their propellers, which can be a bit of a problem.
Take off with your expensive gadget. Yeah.
No, actually, it's surprisingly not that expensive to make. There's also this very interesting research project that actually uses salt water to make an antenna. Yeah, if you do search for saltwater antenna, you'll find the project. It's kind of crazy.
Yeah.
Giglio, if when you get your links put together, we're planning on taking all the slides and stuff that are posted on this wall to my left, or to your right on that wall there, and upload them on a web page that people can go and download those talks after the event is over. So we can add your links to that too.
Perfect. And I think we're
great presentation, Giglio. Thank you.
Thanks a lot.
It's awesome.
I'm going to stop sharing so I don't hijack the screen. And thanks for attending, everybody.